Welcome back to the Unfiltered Political Lens Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the invisible hand of geopolitics and how it is reshaping the Middle East and rewriting the global power. We're going to jump right into it. Welcome back to the Unfiltered Political Lens Podcast. Tonight we're stepping away from breaking headlines to explore the forces quietly reshaping the Middle East. Forces that are not random and not chaotic and not disconnected. The strikes involving Iran, Israel, and the United States, along with naval deployments, cyber operations, and tensions over the Straits of Hormuz, are part of the much larger chessboard. There is an invisible hand guiding these events, not in a conspiratorial sense, but in a structural, systemic way. Power gravitates toward control, energy flows dictate the leverage, and financial systems are engineered to reward the stability while preparing for volatility. The major powers are no longer just reacting to crises, they are deliberately shaping the strategic endgame, layer by layer. The first layer is tactical: missile strikes, carrier groups, drone attacks, and proxy militias operating across multiple theaters. The second layer is strategic deterrence, escalation dominance, red lines, and signaling intentions to adversaries and allies alike. But the third layer is the most consequential yet least visible is structural. Who controls the energy, the sea lanes, digital infrastructure, the global supply chains, currencies, and insurance networks? The mechanisms that make global trade possible for decades, the Middle East has been the beating heart of global energy markets. Even the U.S. shale production reducing direct dependency on the pricing mechanism for oil and gas and critical commodities still runs through the Gulf. Roughly one-fifth of the world's oil passes through the Straits of Hormuz, meaning any disruption can convulse global markets. Iran knows it cannot defeat Israel or the United States in a conventional head-to-head war, but it does not need to. Its leverage lies in the disruption, mining shipping lanes, and launching drones, mobilizing proxy militias, and using asymmetric cyber operations to make containment costly and uncertain. Israel operates under a different logic: preemptive disruption, intelligence superiority, missile defense, and surgical strikes prevent threats from reaching the existential levels. The United States' position between these doctrines balances the deterrence and global stability, domestic energy considerations, and the alliances that are credibility, and it does it simultaneously. This is where the doctrine of control emerges. It is not a formal document, but a structural principle in the 21st century, and control is less about territorial occupation and more about the influence over energy choke points, digital infrastructure in the maritime corridors, financial clearing systems, and strategic nodes of power. Access denial and resilience determine who shapes the outcomes. Zoom out, and the Middle East is inseparable from the global power shifts. Europe's energy map is redrawn by the war in Ukraine, weakening Russian gas leverage and accelerating diversification into LNG, renewables, and nuclear. China watches the Gulf closely while importing massive volumes and while building ports, energy contracts, and infrastructure projects under the Belt and Road Initiative. The United States reshapes its strategy through reshoring, manufacturing, semiconductor independence, and strengthened Indo-Pacific alliances. Energy independence now equates to the insulation from coercion while remaining the generator of maritime stability. Every carrier repositioning, refueling sortie, and missile defense drill signals commitment. And in geopolitics, commitment is a currency of power. Now we're looking to the next decade. The regional strikes are accelerating energy diversification. Europe doubles down on the LNG infrastructure, nuclear power, and renewables. Asia secures multiple suppliers through long-term contracts, and the Gulf states invest in downstream integration, petrochemicals, and alternative energy. As Iran continues asymmetric strategies and alternative trade channels, every missile fired, drone intercepted, and cyber operations executed reinforces that concentration risk is dangerous. Yet diversification takes time and energy, transitions span years. It requires trillions in investment and remain vulnerable to volatility. Flexible producers like the U.S. gain leverage and are able to ramp production faster than many conventional suppliers. Markets respond to strikes, and the strikes respond to markets. The invisible hand is constantly at work. Proxy networks amplify the uncertainty. Iran's regional allies provide plausible deniability and strategic depth. Israel strikes with precision far beyond its borders, and the United States leverages forward bases and alliances for rapid power projection. None of these actors seek total war, but all engage in a collaborative confrontation. Miscalculations and civilian casualties of maritime blockades could cascade into global economic shocks. Technology has become a force multiplier. Surveillance satellites, AI driven target systems, cyber operations, and digital infrastructure control are as critical as oil and military assets. A cyber attack on a port logistics can disrupt trade and as profoundly as missile strikes. Iran has also demonstrated asymmetric cyber capabilities. Israel has integrated intelligence and missile defense technologies. The United States maintains unmatched ISR capabilities while managing the multiple theaters simultaneously. Hybrid warfare, blending cyber economic narratives and kinetic tools, is now standard practice. The strategic question for the next decade is clear. Will the Middle East lose centrality or remain fulcrum of global power? Energy transitions may gradually reduce oil's primacy, but geography guarantees relevance. The Straits of Hormuz and the Suez Canal, Babel Mandeb, these arteries of trade and energy will always matter. Control is evolving from occupation to investment, security guarantees, defense sales, and partnerships. The U.S. strengthens missile defense cooperation in the Gulf. China secures long term energy contracts and port infrastructure. Russia leverages arms sales and regional influence and diplomacy, while each power seeks influence without overextension. Every strike, tanker seizure, or cyber intrusion is a signal in a larger negotiation about hierarchy. Who sets the rules? Who enforces the red lines? And who absorbs the shocks? In the 20th century, control was occupation. In the 21st, I'm sorry. In the 20th century, control was occupation. And the 21st, control is resilience. The power that can withstand disruption while maintaining alliances gains the upper hand. Energy independence is strategic, and the independence in the supply chain security is national security. That is why the Middle East remains central to global strategy. The invisible hand is structural necessity. Energy flows must continue, and trade routes must remain open. Financial systems must clear transactions. When those fundamentals are threatened, great powers move sometimes quietly and sometimes visibly. Watch the patterns, not just the explosions. The energy contracts, the shipping insurance rates, and the defense pacts and infrastructure investments reveal that roadmap. Localized conflicts today are chapters in a larger story, from unipolar dominance to multipolar competition, and from oil dependency to diversified energy matrices, or matrices from the territorial conquest to node control. The Middle East is a barometer. Powers managing this moment will define the next decade and calibrate escalation, which leads to the managed competition. Miscalculation could trigger global realignment. Demographics, urbanization, and technology adaptation shape outcomes. Youth populations, urban growth, and technological integration influence domestic stability and, in turn, regional power projection. Countries failing to adapt internally risk losing external influence. Hybrid warfare, while combining cyber, economic, military, and technological leverage, will dominate the strategic landscape. Global finances and supply chains are theaters of control, and the sanctions, trade restrictions, commodity markets, and insurance networks exert influence without firing a missile. Nations mastering the integration of economics, technology, and military tools shape outcomes more decisively than conventional military power alone. Add climate and resource pressures to the mix. Water scarcity, desertification, and food insecurity in the Middle East create internal pressures that influence external strategies. Nations must invest in resilient infrastructure, food security, and sustainable energy to maintain the influence in a rapidly changing environment. Excuse me. Historical context also informs the strategy. The Middle East has long been a nexus of empire, trade, and conflict. Control over resources, trade routes, and strategic geography has always dictated global influence. The difference now is that the structural, economic, technological, and geopolitical elements are fused into a seamless mechanism of power. In conclusion, the Middle East is no longer just a battlefield, it is a hub of structural power. Energy, technology, finance, and alliances, which are entwined in the invisible hand of geopolitics, actively shapes the global order. Local conflicts today are signals in a larger pattern, a roadmap for the decade ahead. By observing these patterns, we can anticipate the global realignment and understanding emerging hierarchies and recognize that the strategic foresight and resilience are essential to navigating this new era. Thank you for tuning in, and make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth analysis of global power dynamics. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Unfiltered Political Lens Podcast, and we'll see you in the next episode. Peace.